Hey guys, it's Man Candy. Welcome to the first episode of Man Candy Can. We're gonna start this thing off with a bang, maybe a flush. I'm gonna change out the downstairs toilet. It's been leaking for a while. I replaced the valve already, and it's been 2 weeks and it's leaking already. So when we bought the house, it had a couple fancy toilets upstairs, and they never did the downstairs toilet for whatever reason. So I'm gonna do that today. First thing, so I'm gonna pull in the new toilet. We picked it up at Home Depot. Installation kit and everything for about 120 bucks. It's got 2 flushes, one for pee-pees and one for poo-poos. Saves a little bit of water that way, I guess. So I'm gonna pull the toilet out of the box, see what comes in the box, and make sure it's the right size and everything. After that, rip the old toilet out, take it outside, and start installing the new one. So I opened up the box and took everything out, and looks like everything is there that is needed to install the toilet, which was unexpected. We got the Glacier Bay with the dual flush technology. We got the PP button and the poo-poo button. Actually, I think that's backwards, but the point is it just gives you a little splash of water for your pee, and then a whole bunch of water to flush down those turds. Kind of allows you to save a little bit of water, I guess. I don't know if it's noticeable, but so this is a button for it. I'm gonna have to install that. This goes in the lid rather than where the handle in the toilet usually goes. Most importantly though is it came with this wax ring. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a ring of wax, and it's smushy, and all that does is basically that's gonna go around the hole in the floor. When you lift your toilet, all there is just a hole in the floor where all the junk goes. And to seal the toilet to the floor, this goes in between it. You set the toilet on it, it squishes the wax, gives you a nice seal so you don't get a pee on your feet. I didn't know it was going to come with that wax ring, so I got this fancy Next brand wax ring, and to be honest, I'm not really thrilled with it. I haven't even used it, so I shouldn't really even be saying that, but I've installed a lot of toilets, and all I've ever used was this little wax squishy ring. This Next brand one looks like something from Demolition Man or something. It's got an adapter for the top if your toilet's too tall or your drain is in the wrong spot. Really, if your toilet was too tall, you would just stack 2 wax rings. So this has got all kinds of latex rubber and a funnel built in and some wax still on the bottom. And if your toilet's too tall, an adapter for, I don't know. I don't like it, but it's all they had. They didn't have any regular wax rings like this, and I didn't know it was gonna be in the box, but we've already spent the money on this. I'm gonna try it. Worst case scenario is I gotta pull the toilet again and put an old fashioned wax ring in. So I'm learning how to use this for the first time. So in addition to the wax ring, they supplied this little seal. This goes between the tank and the toilet because it comes disassembled. You have to put the bowl down and then attach the tank in the back. This is what goes in between to make sure that the water goes between the tank to the bowl without spilling all over the place. And they give you the bolts to mount the tank to the bowl. And in that kit with the wax ring comes the bolts to attach the bowl to the floor, and lastly the neat little caps to cover up the bolts. So I'm about ready to start yanking this toilet out. I got a few things ahead of time though. Number 1, gloves. Wear some gloves because you're about to get some poo-poo water and some poo-poo wax and all kinds of other poo-poo items on your hands, and that sucks. You should only need a little crescent wrench, but I also grabbed a pair of channel locks just in case. Sometimes stuff is tight. Flathead screwdriver. It's pretty much, at least all I can think of right now, is to pop the cap off. Some WD-40 to lube up some things, and a plunger. We'll show you how to use that in a second if you've never used a plunger before. And you know what? I just thought of one more thing. A scraper for that poo-poo wax. Step number 1 is turn off the water. Down below the toilet, usually on the left side, is the water valve to turn off the toilet. This should be the easiest part of the job. Very quickly could turn into the most terrifying part. Luckily, we have this new style quarter turn valve that shuts off the water. It seems to be pretty new, pretty solid. Sometimes this knob gets so rusty, so water corroded inside that it's hard to turn. And if this breaks, your bathroom fills up with water, and if you don't know how to turn off the water to your house, you are shit out of luck. If you have that style, I'd recommend just turning it slowly. Feel if it stops. Don't force it. Back it up a little bit. Try to close it down again. Do it many, many, many times if you need to, because you don't want that to leak. There is no other valve other than the main shutoff if that valve breaks. So shut off the water is step 1. Step 2, flush the toilet. That's a nasty toilet. Notice because you shut off the water, it's not going to fill back up. If you take off the tank, you'll see that the water almost completely drained out of the tank. If there's a little bit left, just pull the handle, make sure that it drains out completely. Lastly, there's a little bit of water left in the bowl, and that's what we're going to use a plunger for, just to force that water out. Now you're not going to get all the water out of the bowl, but if you get the level down quite a bit, that will be all you need. Really, the only reason is to keep from making a mess all over your floor. Now's a good time to put on those gloves. Right above the valve that you just turned off is where the water connects to the tank. Looks like I have a nice little hand tight one. Hopefully you do too. If not, you can just use those channel locks to loosen it. Just unscrew it counterclockwise until it lets go. There's 2 bolts that hold the toilet down, one on each side, and they're hiding under these nifty little caps. I'm gonna spray a little WD-40 on there. We're just gonna take off the nuts and the little plastic washer that's underneath. With the valve off the bottom of the tank and the nuts off the bottom of the bowl, your bowl is essentially disconnected from the floor. Most of the time there's caulk around the bottom. Mine looks like it's pretty well cracked already, so I'm just gonna pull and see what happens. If it seems like it's holding the toilet down, you're just gonna need to scrape it out with your scraper and basically remove the only remaining glue that's holding the toilet down. Before lifting the toilet though, if you've got carpet, have a piece of cardboard ready, because that wax ring I was telling you about may stick to the floor or it may stick to the bottom of the bowl. So when you have to set the toilet down, you don't want to set it down on the carpet and get that poo-poo wax on your carpet. Tile, not so bad, it'll just wipe up. But I got a piece of cardboard standing by just to set the toilet on. Everything is disconnected. Rock the toilet back and forth a little bit, make sure that it's going to let go and lift straight up. Now in my case, the wax stayed on the floor. This is that stuff I was telling you about. So nice. I think I might make a handle out of this when I'm done. Just use your scraper and clean up as much as you can. Maybe it would have been a good idea to have a trash bag ready. I'm also going to take a minute and scrape all the old caulk off the floor. The chances are the new toilet won't be the same shape. Maybe a little cleany clean. I'd say that this flange doesn't have to be perfectly clean, but I would say make sure it's dry so that if there's any old wax, which there is, the new wax will stick to it and create a nice seal. Just making anybody else hungry? I think it's time for a break. And then time to carry out the old toilet. When carrying the toilet out, keep it tilted towards the front a little bit. That'll keep the little bit of remaining water in the bowl rather than spilling out that hole in the bottom. All right, new toilet is in the bathroom, upside down. If you're using the old-fashioned ring, you're just gonna unwrap it and stick it around the hole and push it down and make sure there's a nice seal. This little funnel thing is gonna go inside that hole in the floor. So it's going to be facing down, but the toilet's upside down, so you're gonna put it right side up. You're gonna push it down real hard. I am not using that though. The instructions for this thing, they say to put it around the bolts on the hole in the floor. My flange, the seat that the toilet sits on, is flush with the ground, so it says that I will not need this adapter. So I'm gonna get rid of that. And I'm using the old bolts because I've had problems changing them out before. They're in a good spot right now. The ears that they attach to are not broken. They're sturdy. The threads are good. There's really no need to change them out. So I'm gonna set this thing right on top, and these little rubber holes fit around the nuts that hold the bolts in, and unless I'm mistaken, we're ready to go. You're just gonna set the toilet right on top of this, aim these bolts right for the holes in the toilet, and spin on some nuts. Now we're gonna put a little downward pressure on that wax ring, and you're gonna feel it give away. And it's basically forming around the toilet. This is both the ring that I'm using and the old-fashioned ring. And now's a good time to make sure the toilet is straight. Now the new toilet came with wing nuts. I like that. These do not need to be that tight. In fact, if you tighten it too much, you can break this piece off and ruin your toilet. So we're gonna use the wing nuts. These little discs are for the caps that go on top. If you forget to put this on or put it upside down, this cap won't fit. Start with that, put the washer on, followed by the wing nut. And start tightening these wing nuts down, or regular nuts for that matter, a little bit at a time on each side. A little over here, a little over here, a little more over here. Check and see if your toilet is rocking. Luckily for me, it seems like they did this tile pretty well, and it's fairly sturdy. If not, they make these little shims for toilets that are just going to slide in underneath wherever your problem area is. Mine seems pretty sturdy, so I'm gonna leave it alone, but I am gonna caulk around the edge, and once that dries, that'll make it even more sturdy. The caps should just snap on. The caps should just snap on. The cap should just snap on. It should. The cap should just snap on. The cap should just snap on. There we go. All right, it's tank time. We need to attach this to this using these. But we're gonna take these off for now. And I don't need this as well. This is, if you're replacing the line, you can slide this over the line and attach it. Mine, however, has this already. So in order to get this to attach to this without leaking, that's where this guy comes in. Set that right over the top. This fits snugly right over this nut. Feel it. Make sure it feels like it's not going to fall off when you lift the tank upside down. We're going to lift the tank upside down. We're going to set these bolts right inside these holes. Once it feels secure, we can put these washers and wing nuts back on. Wiggle the tank around, and you can kind of feel that that seal is sealing. Now we can put these back on. Start with the washers, followed by the wing nut. These don't need to be crazy tight either. Just tighten them down until that seal gets fully compressed and the tank is resting firmly on the back of the bowl. You don't need any tools. Connect that water. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, so bad. So bad. All right, so my line for the old toilet does not reach the new toilet. So I'm gonna have to run to Home Depot and grab a longer one. So I'm gonna take this old hose to the store with me just to make sure I get one that's long enough. Looks like another 4 inches would be fine. You can use that crescent wrench just to take the bottom nut off. Hey, look at that. My old hose says 12 inches length on there. I think 16 would be good. Go to the store and see what we can find. Got my new hose. I'm gonna thread it on by hand and just tighten it just a little bit. It's got a rubber seal inside, so it doesn't need much. And drum roll, please. Nice. The toilet end of this hose just needs to be hand tight. And we can turn on the water and see if water sprays everywhere. So we need to make sure that water's not leaking around these bolts at the bottom. Check between the toilet and the tank. If it's dry in there, you know your seal is sealing well and those bolts are sealing. Check around your hose on top. This one is under pressure, so make sure that's not leaking. And since we just replaced the hose, we need to check here as well. So far so good. We need to install the lid that has the buttons on it. Make sure that these buttons have a tiny little bit of play before you feel them hit the valve in the bottom. Because they have these sticks that push down the valve inside. These are adjustable by unscrewing this little collar and screwing those in and out. So when you put it on, make sure there's just a little bit of play before you feel it hit. If you're not sure, lift up the lid a little bit and you can feel without it pushing on anything. Nice and firm, but not too tight, and it should flush. To install the seats, I'm just gonna put the nylon bolts and washers that the seat came with in the holes and put the nuts underneath. Center the toilet seat and tighten it down as tight as you can by hand. Mine is turning on the top a little bit, so I'm gonna use a flathead. Bueno. Now we can push some buttons and watch the magic happen. That must have been the pee flush. Yep, 1 drop for pee, 2 drops for poo-poo. Pee, poo-poo. Unless you call it pee-pee, in that case you're a child, probably shouldn't be watching this channel. Pee, poo-poo. That wasn't much better. I'm thinking we need to test this thing out. Swallow that, toilet. Oh, touche, toilet. Touche. After flushing it a few times, make sure there's no water coming out around the edges to ensure that that wax ring is sealed, and we can put some caulk on there and call it done. Here's a very quick lesson on caulk. I just buy this little tube because I don't use it all that much. This is plenty to do toilet. Have a little bit of water nearby because smoothing out caulk is a lot easier with a wet finger. So I'm just gonna put a decent amount around the edge to make sure it fills up the crack. Have a paper towel nearby as well. Wet your finger and just slide it right across. Paper towels for when you get a little bit too much, you feel it building up on your finger. Just wipe it off and start over. Once it's smoothed out, I like to get the caulk wet. And just go over it one more time. Let it dry and you're done. Check it out. I got a comment on this video and I haven't even posted it yet. It says, "Hi Man Candy, I love your videos. I've watched every episode 20 times. You're smart, funny, And sometimes I imagine your beard on my skin. Love, Steve. Thank you, Steve. It's awesome that I already have such loyal followers. P.S. What did you do with the old nasty toilet? Safety's off. 3, 2, 1.